Chris never imagined that Jack would actually use his demon brain to mimic the Triceratops fist. Seeing this, Chris also shows a kind expression. Undoubtedly, this move of Jack's has completely stimulated his desire to fight. Even the onlooking crowd can see it clearly. Gradually, as Jack's body disappears, what appears in front of Chris is now a real, genuine Triceratops. Chris once dreamed of fighting a dinosaur. Now, his son has finally helped him realize it. Then Chris slowly raises his hands. He is ready to receive the impact of this behemoth. The next second, Jack fiercely exerts force with his feet. His entire body rushes towards Chris at the speed of a cannonball. The powerful impact forces Chris to keep retreating. At this moment, Jack is like a real Triceratops wrestling with Chris. Even smashing the cars on the roadside, the two don't stop at all. Seeing this scene, everyone is stunned. This fierce confrontation can simply be called a battle of gods. At the same time, in the sky above the city, Peak is also quietly paying attention to this father-son battle. Finally, Chris has had enough fun. He begins to mock the loopholes in Jack's shape-shifting fist. Imitation is ultimately imitation. It can never reach the full strength of the original. And next, Chris decides to let Jack see what real shape-shifting fist is. Chris assumes the bear palm fist, followed by the mantis fist, and finally the crane fist. However, these are not the point. Chris brings his hands together and finally makes a strange gesture. Jack is dumbfounded. Of course, this entire set of movements is completely made up by Chris. The next second, Chris's fists fiercely exert force downward. In an instant, his clothes are torn apart. Before the crowd can react, Chris's body emits a dazzling white light. Instantly, an invisible airflow expands in all directions. When the light dissipates, the legendary demon back is also revealed to everyone. And what Chris is imitating is none other than himself, because he really can't think of anything stronger than him on Earth. Everything Chris does is just to prove his own strength. At this moment, the real battle between the two finally begins. But with just one encounter, Jack knocks Chris out with a punch. However, just as Chris is about to fall, he suddenly widens his eyes. With an extremely bizarre posture, he stabilizes his body. That was close. Chris almost lost to this greenhorn. After getting up, Chris sighs. The power of this strike from Jack is really great. Come, let father pat your head. After hearing his father's words, Jack actually inexplicably sheds tears. Even he himself doesn't understand why his father's doting words make him feel an unprecedented warmth. Although Jack's heart really wants to accept his father's love, just as Chris's big hand is about to fall, Jack still dodges it with a flash. He still can't relax his guard at such a dangerous moment. However, he is still too naive. No one can stop what Chris wants to do. In an instant, tears of humiliation burst out, but Jack quickly launches a counterattack. Now, he is like a toy, allowing Chris to play with him at will. Finally, Chris has had enough fun. He fiercely flings Jack away, and Jack spins non-stop like a kite with a broken string. Only after spinning 25,000 times in the air does he barely land. However, what greets him is another of Chris's fatherly kicks. Jack's entire body is kicked flying. Only after heavily smashing into the concrete ground does he barely stop. Looking at Jack lying on the ground at death's door, Chris says he had a lot of fun, but now it's time to end this game. However, before he can make a move, suddenly a powerful aura comes. Looking back, the wild man Peak actually appears behind him.